Afternoon, everybody. I'm going to get started, and you can continue to converse and eat or whatever, because it won't bother me. I'll just talk right through it. I'm not going to do my slideshow or my presentation because it essentially goes over all the stuff that I went over yesterday. So I didn't want to bore you with the same things, but I am going to cover a couple of things just quickly. And I want to give some time back to the people that are going to talk about the pilot projects, because that's really the interesting stuff for this afternoon. A little bit about the transition plan to electronic ID, and I want to include some things to just make you think about some bullet points. We gave you the timeline. That's something we're sticking to, and we handed that out, and that's actually in this document. So if you have this document, and I believe it's being sent out by Katie.
It's on the website right now.
It's on the website right now, so you can go get it. That timeline kind of lays out what's going to happen between here and 2023. And when we're just remember, the bright tag's going away. That's a good thing. But we want to make sure that we get there in the right way and that people are prepared to make that transition. So we're trying to make that as easy as possible too. We do that through outreach and education, and we're going to depend on a lot of you to do that, and I know a lot of you already have, so that not only are they aware of the timeline, they're aware of why we're going to that and what the benefits are. The biggest thing about electronic ID is talking about the benefits of electronic ID to the producer. And I do it through scenarios. I like to tell stories. I've done a lot of testing in my day, and one of the times that I think it was someone mentioned a 90 herd trace that's going on right now out of South Dakota, TB trace. So what I take that and I'll tell you a scenario. You're on a farm, you get a trace because it's a 90 herd trace because the ID is not real good. So you end up on someone's farm that's probably not infected. So you're taking up his time, federal regulatory medicine time, state regulatory medicine time, all the trace time that went into finding that herd, and you put that 30 cow herd through it, and that's the average size of over half the herds in the United States. That put that 30 cow beef herd through the chute, and the cow breaks its leg.
700.
700? Okay, so half of the producers in the United States are 30 or less, right? That's not the average. I said that wrong, didn't I?
No, I was just saying.
Who said 700? Thatch, leave me alone. Man. Okay, so 700, but we're only testing 30 of them today. And out of that 30, one breaks its leg. Now what did it cost you? So I always hear about the cost of electronic ID, and I just think back of the other thing that you should have gotten out of today's exercise is if you don't ID animals, and we can't get the trace done, and we can't regionalize, and we can't tell the rest of the world where our disease is, and we can't even tell a state vet where that disease is, those animals from other states are going nowhere. No one's going to take them. No one's going to take the risk. Because the number one job of a state vet is what? Protect the state and don't allow disease spread in your state. Quick way to lose your job as a state vet is to allow that to happen. So, outreach and education, we're going to spend some time on that, and each and every one of you need to do that and help us with that. Because you quickly realize in this job that you can talk at the top as long as you want, but if the word's not getting down to the folks that, as I said before, with a pitchfork in their hand, you're wasting your time. Cost share on the tags, we're working on that and what that's going to look like with the state vets. I think we're going to have a call on Wednesday to talk about all those items and how that's going to work. We're hoping to buy a large sum of tags at a discounted price, pass that discount on to the producer. That's our goal. Support for infrastructure with the states, and that's going to be in the markets and the slaughter plants and the auction, and for the accredited vets, we're going to try to put that together. And while there's not a lot of money for that, there's at least some to get started. This all connects to EID. And then we're spending a great deal of money on modernizing our IT systems to include electronic CVIs so that that process can move on and we can do that sufficiently. Final words. When I took this job, I had a lot of meetings with a lot of people, and to get this job done, it's really important that we have partnerships and collaborations. And that goes up and down the chain to all the commodities, to all the groups, to the state veterinarians, and we have to work together. And I've seen things where people come together and work together collaboratively, and it's been awesome. But I've also seen things where there's a lot of infighting and debate over what should be done, and it takes forever. I think with ADT, we're on the edge of awesome. We could get there rather quickly if we work together and we collaborate. If we nitpick and sort through things, we're not going to get there. A lot of these decisions, one of them to eliminate the metal ear tag, is that it just doesn't work for us anymore. We can't get the work done that we need with it. There's a better system out there and we need to start using it. So a lot of people have asked me, well, Dr. Shere, what do I tell my folks about which technology they should adopt? And I'll tell you my thoughts on that. As long as low frequency works, we'll keep it. As long as ultra high frequency works, we'll keep it. It's going to depend on what the producer needs to do his work and what he needs to get done, and how we functionally adapt to that in the process. And what's the industry asking for? You've heard Greg Iboss say several times, we're not going to designate the technology. It would be easier, but I recall about 15 years ago watching Dr. Clifford stand up in front of a crowd at USDA and say, NIAA, we're going to have an electronic system, we're going to have a federal database, we're going to have all these things. Well, that did not work out. So to get us where we're going, we have to work with the producers. After all, it's for them. We're trying to move this system forward for them. We work for them. We serve them. And we needed to give them what they need. So I was once on a football team, and we were good. We had a lot of really good players. And we were picked to win state that year. There was a problem. We had a bunch of good individuals, and that's exactly what the team was, a bunch of good individuals. We never came together as a team, and teams that we should have beat us. So what I'm asking for is, let's be a team, a good team, and let's move forward with what we think needs to be done. And we need to solve our differences and just get this done and move forward. And I know we made tremendous strides. I mean, I go around the United States a lot and talk to a lot of people, and I see a lot of folks. And I just feel this urge that's out there that people want to get this done. They want to move forward. So that's all I really had to say. I'll take questions if there are any. Or I can debate how many cows there are in the United States on each herd average. That's, what is it, 700?
I was just saying that our herd was 700, that's not 30.
Okay. I was just going off of NCBA data. I hate to quote them, but because they may be saying I'm saying the wrong things too, but I read something somewhere sometime, probably 30 or 40 years ago, that said 30 was the average. Half of the cow-calf raisers in the United States have 30 or less animals. Is that wrong? Is it right? There you go. So I remembered it right.
Dr. Shere,
Yes.
I think if you look at the most recent USDA NAS numbers, the average herd size is 30-some, and 50% or 49% of the cattle come from herds of 100 head or less.
There you go, Thatch. Write that down, because I'm going to ask you that next time. Another question?
Yes,
Bob?
sir. I know NIAA was
Thanks, Chelsea, by the way.
NIAA was not a success.
Yes.
But is it time now to move on to a mandatory system? And why not? If that's what you said, why not?
Well, when I first started way back, when I saw the NIAA stuff, I was like, why don't we go mandatory? What's all the hubbub? But I think you got to bring people. They got to think it's part of their idea and that they're coming along because they want to, not because someone's kicking them in the butt, right? And forcing it. So I think we'll get more compliance if we develop a program that people can use. Now, Congress asks me that all the time. Dr. Shere, how good is ADT? Can you trace animals? Yeah, I can. How long does it take you? I said, it depends, right? Do you think that we should go mandatory, Dr. Shere? No, I don't. Why not? Because I said, we're making progress dealing with people. I said, it takes time to do things. I said, you can't mix a cake up all at once. You got to add stuff individually, or else you just have a mess. I said, we're trying to mix the batter so we have good cake when we're done. And I think the efforts of the state vets, the efforts of the different sectors of the industry and the commodity groups, we'll get there. It just takes us a little longer. But it would be easier to go mandatory. And I think once we get the gaps fixed on what we currently have under rule, then we're going to have to look at where do we go next. But I really want to fix the gaps on what I currently have under rule and make sure that works kind of as a model of where we need to go and how we can do a better job on the next phase. Thanks, Bob. Questions? Other questions? Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Oh, get more?
If there's a break like tomorrow in African swine fever, can you go over the steps that you would take and that the government would take at that point?
Okay, every foreign animal disease, as I said this morning, is different depending on where it is and the degree of infection. What our first steps are, and what I hope you learn through this exercise, is we have to find the disease, know where it's at. But immediately when we get African swine fever, when it's confirmed at the National Veterinary Services Lab, not at a non-lab, because they'll probably be the first ones that'll do the testing, they'll get a presumptive positive, okay? They ship that then, and I would prefer that if it looks like ASF, and we say this to the state vets all the time, as well as our people in the field, if it looks like a foreign animal disease, split the samples and send them both at the same time. Don't dink around with it at your non-lab. If it looks like the real deal, and you can tell because there's massive die-offs. Not with all ASF, but let's just say it's a virulent form. We're getting reports that the guy has 500 sows, half of them are dead. They all got the same, because ASF looks like a lot of things. So we test them. We split the samples, some go to Fattle. At this point they'd go to Fattle. We'd fly them there. We don't mess around. The other sample, it's split sample, or I shouldn't say split, dual samples will be taken. Half the samples go to NVCL, or excuse me, go to Fattle, and we would put them on a plane and fly them direct. The other half would go to NOM. Now the non-lab might have them confirmed before they ever get to the federal lab. So they got a presumptive positive and they report that out. Confirmation on any foreign animal disease has to be done at a federal lab. That's in the CFR, there's a rule there, and we follow that rule. That doesn't mean we don't think that the non-lab diagnosis is right, because we train them, they take tests to be validated and utilizing the tests that we use. They use the same tests we do. But we've had mistakes. So long story short, and though they've been few. So that presumptive positive is, we would call the state and say, don't say anything, not yet. Let us confirm it, because we don't want the world going crazy. Because we've had presumptive positives that turn out to be negatives. So NVSL Fattle would confirm it, or in the future it'll be NVAF in Kansas City. They confirm it, I'd get a call. Any hour of the day or night, I'm going to get that call. They'll tell me, Dr. Shere, we've got a positive. Are you sure? My next question is, how many times did you run it? And they will have ran it several times before they call me. Now I know it's positive, so I go up my chain of command to the administrator, to the undersecretary, to the secretary, and we tell them that. In the meantime, we've got foreign animal disease diagnosticians on their way out to those facilities, probably to take another batch of samples because we want to be sure. So we've done that. That farm is usually quarantined immediately off of the known sample by the state vet. They'll quarantine that farm, so there's no movement. So now all we've really done is we've got a presumptive positive, we've quarantined the farm, Now the trace work starts. We've got to find out what's come on the farm and what's left the farm. What sales or purchases have gone on. And then we get a list of those and we start tracing them. And we go to each location, and the first thing is pick up the phone and say, hey, Mr. State Vet in state number 2, we've got traces to your state from a foreign animal disease. And then they start tracing. And they go probably and make farm visits to see, are there any clinical signs of a similar disease. So as this continues, we get a scope for what that really is what we call shoe leather epidemiology. They're out looking. Okay, we get a scope for where the program, and if there's signs on another location, they're going to test that farm too. And that farm will get coordinated. And then on, as we continue to find it. So as that epi is getting done and it's being reported up the chain, and we're mapping it and we're tracking it and we've got it in our computer systems, decisions are being made on what needs to happen next. And phone calls, a national phone call probably happened within 24 hours of the diagnosis with all the state vets saying, hey, we've got this, which puts everybody on alert to start looking. Now, if we see it's widespread, and I mean, this has been talked about, and I'm talking pretty widespread. They say if we get ASF, it'll be in 22 states in a period of a few days because of the way we move pigs. That's kind of scary. So let's say there's a scenario where it's widespread, and then we're going to talk to the state vets about, and you've heard about this, about a 72-hour shutdown. Nothing moves. So animals in transit will reach their point of destination, or they'll be turned around and sent back to their point of origin, depending on what goes on or what the state wants to do. But we have agreement that most of the states would abide by that. So that gives us a short period of time, not long, because if you shut things down longer than that, you start getting into animal welfare issues based on the way we raise pigs and poultry, and there's a little bit more margin with cattle. They have a little bit more time, but I wouldn't say a lot, because they still got to sale animals and they got to move animals. But we do that 72-hour shutdown and see if we can get a handle on things. So there's no vaccine for ASF. We're killing animals. That's the other process that starts immediately. The way you stop a virus that you don't have a vaccine to control is you euthanize animals. So with euthanasia comes disposal and what are you going to do with all those animals? So all those things have to be thought through. States have individual plans. When we roll into a state with an incident management team, we ask them, how are you going to handle this? What's your plan say about disposal? What's your plan say about how you're going to kill the pigs? Can we burn? What's your EPA say? All those things we have to look at. So we roll in and we ask them about their rules. If they don't have rules or they don't have a task force big enough to control it, we're bringing more people until we exhaust the federal personnel, and then we go into other departments. That's all set up as a process. So those are the processes that we would follow. So we're eradicating the disease at first. That's our number one goal. Stomp it out. We want to get rid of it, okay, if we can. If it's widespread, like what you're seeing in China, ASF is endemic in China. Don't kid yourself. It's all over. So they're going to live with that. They're trying to get rid of it, but it's endemic. And you've seen that it's spread to other countries surrounding China. We would try to eradicate and stamp it out. That's our number one goal. If we can't, then it becomes endemic. Then we start, much as we started with other programs that we didn't have for disease vaccines for. You go farm by farm, and you stamp it out by testing. If they're positive, they die. So that's a bad case scenario. But what I'm hoping is, and the United States would be shut down. No one's going to accept anything from us until we determine where the disease is and we can show it. Now I'll tell you this, Canada and Mexico would regionalize us because they have the same things at stake as we do. If they get the disease, they want us to regionalize them. And that would be a matter of proving our epi, proving where the disease is, and showing everybody where the disease isn't, and that we have a good traceability system so we can move our animals. So all in a nutshell, everything we've talked about this week, that's what happens in a foreign animal disease outbreak. Everything. Other questions? Did that answer your question? Probably more than you wanted to hear.
Going off that question, if we find it in the wild swan or wild boars, how would that change the response?
Well, it's different. In Europe, they've had it in the wild boars for some time, and they have a huge population of wild boars in Eastern Europe and in Western Europe. Okay, they love them, they hunt them, they just, it's the greatest thing. So we would try to determine where those boars were located, and we'd have to show where the disease was located. Now, in areas where there was disease, I would imagine other countries will not accept swine or swine products from those areas. So we'd have to regionalize our production and the way that we would handle the distribution and slaughter of those animals, such that if a plant's in an endemic area with boars, chances are that even though the pigs were negative, that other countries wouldn't want to take animals from a slaughter plant. We did that to Poland. Poland says, well, we've got this circle, there's no pigs in the city, and there's no infection, but we've got wild boars all around the city, but they can't get in, and so there's no infection, so can we continue to use that slaughter plant? The United States said, no, you can't, it's too much risk. We want you to use plants that are in a clean area where there's clean boars. We want no cross-contamination. I imagine whatever we do to other countries are going to do to us. So we determine where those boars were and where that infection was, and then we'd have to continue to do surveillance of some kind, either to show the world that we eliminated it, and if there was a decision to eliminate it. You got to work with a lot of folks when you start killing wildlife. You know, even though they're wild boars and they're a problem, not everybody feels the same about massive destruction of a population of animals. So we determine that by surveillance, and then we'd have to, again, regionalize, show the world, here's where we have boars infected and we're not pulling pork products from those areas. Any pork that was raised in an area that was endemic, we'd keep in the United States. It would not be allowed to be shipped. I hope that answers your question.
Dr. Shere, could I ask real quick back on the beef side?
Sure.
What happens if we don't do this cost share or this reduction in cost to the producers? Do we need to be hung up on that?
Absolutely not. It's not that much money anyway. I mean, we're just trying to find a way, and I said this before, to help the transition. So we hear all the time, I hear both sides of the story from the producers. Tags are expensive, I don't want to spend money on the tags. I shouldn't have to, shouldn't be a burden that the government puts on me. We're trying to find a way to lessen the blow a little bit, and like I said, it's not a lot of money, but at least it shows that we hear them, we're listening, and we heard what they said. We're doing the best we can to help with that situation. So to answer your question, no, it's not going to be a big deal. And it's going to be a real pain in the ass to administer. So, but it's going to fall on our states, our state department's bag. So, yeah, I'd like to, but I do think there's some merit in mass purchase of tags to drive the price down. That's all I can say about that. And I know other people have other opinions. Looks like we're done. Thank you so much for your attention. Appreciate it.